All righty. Welcome to Kabbalah of Adam. I think this is Ezekiel, what, 21? 21. Of course, on all our Ezekiel classes, we do Ezekiel, but there's all kind of axioms and things that go along with it. And last week, we talked about the two biggest Kashas. The one where, in the Oral Torah, in the Talmud, with Rabbi Akiva and Moses, you know, what was going on there. And I just kind of briefly went through a little condensed version. And since I did that, this week we're going through the full version. Because last week we went through the full version of why he hit the rock, you know. And this week we're going to go through the full version of basically what does Moses know that God does not. And why does bad things always happen to the best people? You know, there's these questions we always have. It's a Kashah question with Moses, but we're going to find out what's really going on. Shalom, Karen, how you? And then we're going to get into Ezekiel chapter 6, I believe, and go through 1 through 10, somewhere around there. And we're going to figure out, and really, it's going to really tie in what's going on here with what's going on there. Because we always say, God, why is everything bad happen to Israel? Why is everything always, you know, Jews can't seem to get a break, right? And so we will find out what the reason is today. The axiom is, all right? So without further ado, let's get rolling here. Let's say our prayer. And if you have book number 58, Menachos, we're going to be in the Talmud. So if you want to go grab that. Ruler of the universe and master of all masters, Father of mercy and forgiveness, we thank you, our God and the God of our fathers, by bowing down and kneeling, that you brought us closer to your Torah and your holy work, and that you enable us to take part in the secrets of your holy Torah. How worthy are we that you grant us with such a big favor. That is the reason we plead before you, that you will forgive and acquit all of our sins, and that they should not bring separation between you and us. And may you be your will before you, our God and the God of our fathers, that you will awaken and prepare our hearts to love and revere you. And may you listen to our utterances and open our closed heart to the hidden studies of your Torah. And may our study be pleasant before your place of honor, as aroma of sweet incense. And may you emanate to us light from the source of our soul to all of our being. And may the sparks of your holy servants, through which you revealed your wisdom to the world, shine. And may their merit and the merit of their fathers and the merit of their Torah and holiness support us, so we shall not stumble through our study. And by their merit enlighten our eyes and our learning, as stated by King David, the sweet singer of Israel. Open my eyes so that I will see wonders from your Torah. Because from his mouth God gives wisdom and understanding. May the utterance of my mouth and the thoughts of my heart find favor for you, God, my strength and my Redeemer. Amen. Okay, Talmud. It's book number 58, Tractate Menachos. And we are in 29b1. For those of you that like to follow along, 29b1. If you will look on the right-hand page, where it says the Gemara turns to the topic of the Tagin, beginning with an Agadic narrative. Agadah, right? They're going to tell us a story. In other words, they're going to tell us a story, and wrapped in that story is the secrets of the universe. That's what Agadah is, the telling. Okay? And the Kabbalah is the receiving. So, Rav Yehuda said in the name of Rav, when Moses ascended to the heavenly heights, he found the Holy One, blessed be he, as he was sitting and attaching crowns to some of the letters. That is, although the Torah was completely written, he was still adding tagin to certain letters. Moses said before him, Master of the universe, who is holding you back from giving the Torah as it is? God said to him, there is one man who is destined to exist at the end of many generations. Akiva ben Yosef is his name. This is Rabbi Akiva. And it is he who will expound upon each and every point, heaps and heaps of Holocaust. Moses said before God, Master of the universe, show him to me. God said to him, turn around and see what is behind you. He found himself in Rabbi Akiva's class. Moses went and sat at the end of 8 rows of students. But as he was listening to the give and take between Rabbi Akiva and his students, he did not understand what they were saying. Disheartened, Moses' strength abated. However, once they reached a certain matter that required a source, Rabbi Akiva's student asked him, Teacher, where'd you get this from? And he, Rabbi Akiva, replied to them, it is a halakha transmitted orally to Moses at Sinai. He returned and came before the Holy One, blessed be he. Moses said before him, Master of the universe, you have someone like this and you give the Torah through me? Now notice at the end of that statement, there's a question mark, exclamation point. Is it a question or is it a statement?
The question statement.
Okay? That's going to become serious in a minute. Give it through Rabbi Akiva. Stoke, God said to him. Quiet. Told him to shut up. Thus has it risen in the thoughts before me. This is a part of my greater plan to which you are not privy. Does Moses really not know? Moses knows everything. We have to tell ourselves. It's part of Agadah. Where does he get that? Where are they getting this from? They are getting this Agadah from Moses. Master of the universe. Moses said for him, Master of the universe, you have shown me his Torah. Now show me his reward. God said to him, turn around and see what is behind you. Moses turned around and saw the people were weighing the flesh from Rabbi Akiva's body in the butcher's meat market in order to sell it. Moses said before him, Master of the universe, this is your Torah and this is your reward. Question mark, exclamation point. This is your Torah and this is your reward. Really? This man has served you his whole life, and he's one of the greatest sages that ever lived, and this is what he gets? God said to him, Stoke, quiet, shut up. This is a part of my greater plan to which you are not privy. So, now we have our kasha. What does Moses know that God doesn't know? Why do good things happen to bad people? Right? To answer this, we are going to look into this book, which was written by Rabbi Bakst, who is my rabbi that I study with. This book is called Beyond Kabbalah. It's a huge book, and it's got more Kabbalah teachings in it than you will ever learn from reading any other book. If you don't have this book, it's a must, because it teaches you how to think. Okay? So, in this book, if you start reading at the front, he will say stop and start reading at the back, because the end is rooted in the beginning. All right? What he's teaching you in the very first verse is this secret to this matter. The end is rooted in the beginning. Rabbi Akiva's end is rooted in the beginning. That's the point. So what is the beginning and what is the end? We know what the end is. They were flaying him with a flail, his skin, and they were selling pieces of him. Okay? Turn to page 374. And God kept telling him, this is ascending in my thought, right? Be quiet. Don't say anything. There's something about speech that's the issue here. Quit talking. You know, what did God tell Moses at the Red Sea? Quit talking, quit praying, quit doing all this, quit asking me for, get moving, right? All right? This is the ascension of God's thought. What does Moses know that God does not? Is there even such a question you can ask? Right? First thing we have to ask is, who is Moses? Or what is Moses? Hello, Gary. So the time this is going on is 135 CE during the Bar Kokhba revolt against the Hadrianic reign. This is taking place in a prison in Rome, occupied Judea. And the event is the execution of Rabbi Akiva by the Roman governor. Moses returned and came before the Holy One and said to him, Master of the universe, you have someone like this, and you give the Torah through me? The divine mind said to him, silence. Thus it is risen in my thought before me. Moses said before him, Master of the universe, you have shown me his Torah, now show me his reward. The divine mind said to him, turn around, turn backwards. He turned around and he saw they were weighing pieces of flesh in the meat market after flaying his skin with iron combs. Moses returned and came before the Holy One and said before him, Master of the universe, this is your Torah and this is its reward. The divine mind said to him, Stoke, thus has it ascended in my thought before me. The previous section of Agadah is only half of the story of Moses' encounter with Rabbi Akiva. The other half, being here, is one of the most famous and also the most confounding. The oral transmissions of the Talmudic sage mystics. It is well known even outside the scholarly Jewish circles as it goes into the core of the external question of human suffering. Why the Holocaust? Right? Why the exiles? Especially of the Jewish people, and the apparent triumph of evil over good. It seems like, quote unquote, the devil keeps winning, right? Whereas in the previous episode that we didn't read, challenges our preconceptions about this 3,300-year-old relationship between Moses' written Torah and Rabbi Akiva's oral Torah. This section here challenges our preconceptions concerning this enigmatic relationship between the Creator and His creation, where the previous section surprisingly leads us into the Living Torah Academy of Rabbi Akiva. And the second part horrendously leads us into the torture and bleeding body of the master scholar and the quintessential tzaddik, Rabbi Akiva. This section here is also in many ways the final act and mystery of the purpose and mission of the nation of Israel. What happens to Rabbi Akiva happens to the nation of Israel. Prat, klal, in the singular and in the national and in the whole. We will see, however, that the end is rooted in the beginning. And what horrendously appears at the end of the story is actually the beginning. The beginning that begins before the beginning of creation itself. This Agadic teaching is entitled, What Did Moses Know That God Did Not? It is a rhetorical Kashah question, phrased in a way that is intended as a Torah koan to push our consciousness beyond its comfort level and out of the box of conventional religious thinking. Just as we saw that it is impossible that Rabbi Akiva and his colleagues could have known anything that in essence Moses did not know, here also there is not anything that the divine thought knows that Moses did not. It is impossible and virtually forbidden to think of such a thing. God is absolutely omnipotent, omnipresent, omniscience, and the very root of all consciousness. Moreover, this Kasha question, this Torah koan, belies the Peshat narrative of the Agadic text itself. Where do we see in the word of the sages that even implies that it is God who doesn't know something? It is Moses who is asking the questions, not God. What could possibly be the basis of what is going on here with Rabbi Akiva? What does Moses know that God does not, is the question. Within this impossible riddle, the master sages are taking us into the core of Torah consciousness and into the collective soul of Moses. Be prepared, as the contour of its reality can be and should be confounded and even disturbing. Yet the divine mystery of the bizarre, baffling martyrdom of Rabbi Akiva ben Yosef beckons us to come close enough as we acknowledge the fear of being skinned alive and undergo indescribable torture and agony. What we are about to witness is unfathomable and impenetrable. But in the tradition of the teachings that cannot be taught, we are going to do it anyway. How can we even dare to approach the unapproachable? Because we are going in beyond Kabbalah by synergizing the Talmudic methodology and the principles of Kabbalah, all the while processing it through the powerful consciousness tool of the new sciences and toroidal space. So what he's saying is, what's starting at the top comes through the bottom and then comes around back to the top. It's a toroidal motion. The end is rooted in the beginning. But when it goes from Atzilut to Bia, it prolapses out. So the ultimate pleasure becomes the ultimate pain. Messiah ben Joseph, Messiah ben David, Messiah ben Joseph. And as soon as it creates enough stimulation from below, and because this is Guvurot and this is Hasidim, as soon as the Guvurot comes back on the inside, is it rape or is it pleasure? It's a fine line. You see, this is what he's explaining. Let's continue. The personified response of the Holy One, shtok or silence, thus it has ascended in the thought before me, is the central and final key to the Malchut, to the kingdom of Mosaic consciousness. This startling, disturbing confrontation between the mind of Moses and the divine mind is also the key to the crown, the Keter, of the Creator's consciousness, as much as we can point out in the direction that cannot be pointed out to. Because remember, he was putting crowns on the letters. That's Malchut, right? What are the letters? They're Keter, right? So you have Keter, and so the end is rooted in the beginning. So what he's doing, what he's telling us in the Agadic story, is the secret to the puzzle. It's right in front of your face. They reveal to conceal. You know? So the Malchut is coming up. It's arising in his thought, in the Keter. Crown, Keter, crown, Keter, crown, Keter, crown. Ritzo Vishov, running and returning. Secret of Ezekiel. The ascension of God's thought is the ultimate test and the ultimate experience of direct knowing, da'at. But before we venture any further into the mind of Moses and the thought of God, we need to assemble some more facts that have come down to us about this ghastly execution of Rabbi Akiva. Our Agadah has a number of corresponding and interfacing texts throughout the oral tradition. Elsewhere, it is written in the Talmud. One sage taught, once the evil regime, the Roman government, during the brutal 2nd century Hadrianic persecution, following the destruction and the sacking of Jerusalem in 70 CE decreed that the Jewish people were not permitted to study or teach Torah. So what he's saying is 70 years after Common Era, which is destruction of the temple, when the Romans came, which is when all the whole Jesus stuff started, when the Romans came and took control of Jerusalem and destroyed the temple, Jews were forbidden to teach or study Torah. Rabbi Akiva was gathering people in groups of Jews and studying Torah with them. It was not even a few days until they arrested Rabbi Akiva and held him in prison. When they took Rabbi Akiva out to execute him, it was the time in the morning for the recital of the Shema. And they were scraping off the skin with iron combs. Yet Rabbi Akiva was accepting upon himself the yoke of the kingdom of heaven. His disciples said to him, "Our teacher, even to this extent?" Question mark, exclamation point. Are they saying even to this extent, question mark, or even to this extent? Statement. It's an ambigram. Everything in Torah is an ambigram. It can be stated as a statement or asked as a question, depending on where you are. Rabbi Akiva said to them, "All my life I have wrestled with this verse. You will love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul." Meaning, even if he takes your soul, I said to myself, when will the opportunity come to my hand that I may fulfill this verse? And now it has come into my hands. Should I not fulfill it? Question mark, exclamation point. He was drawing out the word echad and the last word of the Shema. Hear, O Israel, Havayah, our God, Havayah is echad, one. Until his soul ascended with the word echad. He was the Malchut. He was the crown at that point. You see what I'm saying? The end is rooted in the beginning. It's unified. A bat kol came out, a divine voice, emanated and proclaimed, "Fortunate are you, Rabbi Akiva, that your soul ascended with echad." The ministering angel said before the Holy One, echoing Moses' identical response, "This is the Torah and this is its reward." Another Talmudic source, Rabbi Akiva was being held upright and penalized with death by having his skin flayed for the crime of continuing to teach Torah in public before the evil Turnus Rufus, the Roman governor of Judea during the reign of the Hadrians. The time had come for the daily mitzvah commanded of the recital of the Shema. Rabbi Akiva, in the midst of his suffering, began to recite the Shema and was in a state of ecstasy. He was literally laughing. Because skin is only light turned inside out. Right? Or with an aleph to or with an ayin. So what state is Rabbi Akiva in? Okay? The governor said to him, "Oh man," he was 120 years old, "are you a sorcerer that you have performed sorcery so you do not feel the pain? Or are you continuing to bail despite your agonizing torture? You remain defiant, refuse to show it in order to anger me?" Rabbi Akiva said, "No, I'm not a sorcerer, nor am I brazenly rebelling. Rather, all my life I've struggled when I would recite the verse of the Shema, and I would say, when will the opportunity to fulfill these commandments come into my hands? The verse says, you will love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your possessions. I have merited fulfilling two of these. I've loved him with all my heart and I've served him with all my possessions. But with the command to love him with all my soul, when will he take my life? I've yet to be tested. And now that the opportunity to love him with all my soul has arrived, simultaneously with the time to recite the Shema, and in my thought, was not distracted due to the searing pain from the loving God with all my soul. It is for this reason that I laugh joyfully as I recite the Shema. He almost did not have time to complete the verse of the Shema before his soul ascended out of his body, and he died immediately afterwards. According to Rabbi Yosef Chaim of Baghdad, known as the Ben Ish Hai, he sees the image based upon the Midrash. The events recorded above did not take place on one day. Rather, from the time Rabbi Akiva was captured, he was taken daily before Turnus Rufus and tortured by having his skin and his body scraped off. Each time he recited the Shema, believing that he would die from the excruciating pain inflicted upon him. Rabbi Akiva became the model for millions of Jews throughout all the future generations who died and were murdered with the Shema as their final words. It was during one of these days that his disciples asked, "Our teacher, even to this extent?" They could not even ask him on the day he died while he was reciting the Shema, because they would have interrupted him in the middle of the verse, which is prohibited, as well as being grossly inappropriate considering the circumstances. Rather, on the day that Rabbi Akiva his physical body could no longer endure the horrendous daily torture, his disciples were not present, as he was alone with his executioner. The day was Yom Kippur. Pretty rough read. The 10 martyrs of the kingdom. Additionally, there is another ancient source that informs us that Rabbi Akiva was not martyred alone. There was the additional butchery of 9 of his colleagues. Altogether, the 10 master Talmudic sages. For 1,800 years, this seminal event in Jewish history has been known as the 10 martyrs. Why? One, and there's 10 sphirot in one. Right? So, klal and prat, always. Rabbi Akiva was the only one of the network of sages who were captured and executed and tortured to death for disobeying the Hadrianic edict against practicing and teaching the Torah. Together, their full name is the 10 martyrs of the kingdom. Ostensibly, the term refers to the kingdom of the evil Roman government that was responsible for their deaths. Additionally, references, however, of the kingdom represents the Kashah question. If the point is to transmit that the Roman government was the reason of these atrocities, then the sages should have referred to this event as the 10 martyrs of the Roman kingdom, or simply do not include the term kingdom. We would know from tradition that these 10 Jews were murdered during the period of the tyrannical Roman rule. We have learned, however, that the Talmudic sages specifically revealed certain things in order to conceal other things. What are the sages concealing from us with the apparent superfluous addition of the term Malchut, kingdom? What do the masters of concealment know that we do not know? What does Moses know that God does not? Are we really prepared to know? Historically, these 10 master Talmudic sages were not murdered by the Roman government all at the same time, 2 of them having lived well before the other 8. Rather, their deaths took place over a period of 100 years. What is crucial is the period of time over which the episode occurred, as explained. It is also crucial that they specifically comprise a minyan, a quorum of 10 Jews. This is important clue due to the comprehensive of cosmic significance of the legacy of the 10 martyrs. Why did they have to do it? Because there was no man. They had to create the man. Because the further they go into exile, the further you get, and the Roman exile is going to be the longest. The further you get away from the front, from the beginning, the closer you get to the end. If the end is rooted in the beginning, you're going to have such powerful light at the end that gets you snapped back to the beginning. So the Holy One, he saw the light, and the light was good, and he put that tov, the light was tov, and he put that light away for the Messianic era. They were the ones that created the wormhole to draw that light all the way to the very end, so that it created enough ma'im nukvin, enough man, for the that snaps us into the Messianic era. If not for what they did, God would destroy the world. Now, we know from the four that entered the Pardes, right? Rabbi Akiva entered in peace and left in peace. But this was what his punishment was. It got them all. It ultimately got them all. But God has put this light for the end of days, because it's going to be enough light, along with all the other martyrdom of all the other Jews, to be able to snap this thing all the way back to Atzilut in a blink of an eye. Because you have to have stimulation from below. From Malchut, they can't see me on the screen because my arms are out. From Malchut to Keter. Well, I'll do it from here. From Malchut to Keter. You have to have enough light to crown the Keter, the king. So there has to be enough energy stored, and where's he going to get that from? Flesh. Skin. Guvarot. When the contaminated Guvarot go into the Taurus and become the holy Guvarot inside the Hasidim to fortify the Hasidim, that's called the death of Messiah ben Joseph. See? That's what they are. They are doing it in a series of 10 in a minyan, and the Jews are doing it collectively as a whole. Let's keep reading. The hidden landscape behind the secret of the 10 martyrs is of the kingdom, the Malchut. What we are about to see reveals a strange, iterating fractal pattern that has its root in the creation process even before creation, as we know it took place. To the extent that one begins to perceive his hidden pattern, nor will it depend on how one will be able to master the dance of Hasidim and Guvarot, and how deep one's able to enter into the four doors, into the mind of Moses. Now, let us, in the living tradition of the Talmudic sages, build up and fortify this Kasha question. Why do bad things happen to good people, right? We all want to know. Well, everybody that's doing Torah, they all get killed, right? Which initially makes the problem even more difficult. In this case, truly more difficult than any human being can bear. We now know that his Sinaitic vision, Moses witnessed not only the horrific and apparent arbitrary torture and murder of a pure and saintly Rabbi Akiva, but the torturous murder of all the tzaddikim and living embodiment of the Holy Torah. They were also tortured in very sadistic fashions by the Romans. Aside from Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Hananiah ben Teradon was wrapped in a Torah scroll and set on fire, while wet wool was continually placed upon his heart in order to prolong his torture before he succumbed to his burning. Before the incredulous eyes of his disciples, Rabbi Hananiah ben Teradon witnessed that although the parchment of the Torah scroll was burning, the essence of the Hebrew letters were escaping and ascending heavenwards, returning to their source. Were they not crowning the Hebrew letters? See how the stories intertwine. According to tradition, Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava had 300 lances stuck into his body. Likewise, Rabbi Ishmael, which he's one of our favorite guys, right? The Kohen Gadol, had the flesh of his face peeled off because the Roman ruler's daughter coveted his handsome form when she told her father Caesar that he would not empty that he would not exempt any of the Jewish sages, that he would execute all as well. She asked if the skin of his face would be flayed while he was alive, so that she could stuff his skin and continue to look at his face. All right? This is Christianity, guys. You think God's not storing up some stuff? As ghastly as these details are, they are important to know, and as much as humanly possible for us to identify with them, because from Moses' perspective, as well as for our own, this only can be increased his existential horror and demand for justice, which he confronts the Creator about. We feel the increased power of the Kashah question from Moses' perspective as we can experience that which we cannot experience. Moreover, Kabbalah informs that just as Rabbi Akiva is a microcosm of all 10 martyrs, so the 10 martyrs are a microcosm of the collective soul of the nation of Israel. Moses' cry, as well as that echoed in the ministering angels even said, "This is your Torah and this is your reward," is also peering into the future horrors of some 250,000 Jews who were crucified on crosses, as this was the time the Romans preferred this mode of capital punishment during the destruction of the temple in 70 AC. The rampant persecution, forced conversions, and torture of Jews during the Spanish Inquisition, the decimation of 300 Jewish communities during the Christian Crusades, and the hundreds of thousands during the centuries of progons of the blood libels continues unabated. This is your Torah and this is your reward? It is also staring directly into the crematoriums of the Holocaust and the murders of over 6 million innocents, including 1.5 million children. With this agadata, the Talmudic sages are taking us directly into the harrowing and unfathomable abyss of the Holocaust. In addition to over 3,000 years of Jewish persecution, suffering, and genocide, known as Berea, Yetzirah, and Asiya, Messiah ben Joseph. The confounding historical suffering of the Jewish people is, in turn, a microcosm of the history of the suffering of humanity, which is beyond number, beyond words, and beyond comprehension. Moses is asking everyone's question, and he is taking it directly to the source. What is the name of God? What in the name of God is going on here? He cries out. How can you be a good and just God and allow bad things? This is what every Christian says. The God in the Old Testament is the bad God. Our God's the good God. The mean God and the good God. Right? Most incredulous evil. What happened to good people? Even the holiest people of all received the worst. Isaiah was cut in half. Sawn in half. The Holy Zohar, echoing the sources in the Talmud and the Midrash, also support the apparent existential dead end of the Holy One's response to Moses. He don't give him an answer. He tells him to shut up. Or does he give him an answer? When Moses saw the inexplicable judgment concerning the 10 martyrs of the kingdom, he prayed before the Holy One. He replied to him, "Thus has it ascended in a divine thought, and there is no one who can comprehend it." The Zohar even depicts King David as having been confounded by the same burning question. King David asked a question, but the answer was not given to him. Why do the 10 tzaddikim in the future, the 10 martyrs, as well as the tzaddikim throughout history, die by the hands of men and not by the kiss of God? The kiss of God is you go to sleep one night and you don't wake up. Okay? So David even saw into the future of what was going to happen. Let you know what level he is on. The Zohar adds on, if we didn't have enough problems already with our own Kashah question. Anyone who is occupied with Torah, the evil nations of the world have no dominion over him. What? And if you will ask, what about Rabbi Akiva and his colleagues? The answer is that in that case, it was a divine decree. Thus has it ascended in the divine thought. Finally, the Zohar proclaims that the entire spectrum of Torah consciousness is acutely aware of this cosmic existential dilemma. From the beginning of creation, we do not find such an apparent perversion of justice, such as in the matter of the 10 martyrs. Doesn't make any sense, right? The question, why do bad things happen to good people, has been asked worldwide. Why me, Lord? Why me? From the beginning of human consciousness. Following the Holocaust, however, the mass slaughter of hundreds of millions of men and women and children throughout the 20th century, the question is especially emblematic in our generation. Yet over 3,300 years ago, Moses, with his burning challenge to God, is staring with this question right in his face. If one wants to enter into the mind of Moses to fathom what did Moses know that God did not, it is critical to realize that this question Moses is raising is the very same question. In order to go any further, we must make Moses' problem our problem. And his problem is humanity's problem. He is staring at the raw, fiendish, and apparently random acts of unconscionable evil. Moses appears to be traumatized and justly demands an explanation from the Creator as to this reality. Our entire post-Holocaust generation is likewise traumatized, and we also demand an explanation from God. So what answer does Moses receive? Apparently, he is abruptly told by God to shut up and be silent because it was beyond his mortal comprehension, even that of a spiritual genius of the mind of Moses, and simply none of his business. By extension, our deeply questioning generation also feels that we have abruptly been told to be quiet too, as the answer is beyond our understanding. Just believe God. Don't question, it's just the way it is. The ascension of God's thought, however, reveals a revolving revolution in both Moses' Kashah and to our generation of our own Kashah. We have now zoomed in a bit and amplified Moses' challenge to the divine mind and have a glimpse into the cavernous depths of this Kashah question. Now, with deep trepidation, we are prepared to look into the divine response. The apparent tone personifies in the opening word in which the Creator responded to Moses is perplexing, to say the least, and the Hebrew term shtok is translated as silence or quiet. However, the literal meaning is shut up. In Hebrew, the more diplomatic and polite way to tell someone to be quiet is sheket, quiet, or tishtok, which also comes from the root word shtok in the form of the future second person, and it has a sense of you will be quiet. The term shtok, however, is in the imperative and commanding form in the second person and is strong and abrupt. We cannot but think, is this the way for a loving God to react to a basic human condition, trying to understand the horrors of life? Only an impatient, angry, or an merciless disciplinarian could respond in this way. Daddy's mean, right? If this were the case, what kind of role model of the Creator are the Talmudic sage mystics presenting to us? After all, the fundamental concept within Rabbinic Judaism, according to Maimonides, one of the 248 positive mitzvah is, he is, so shall you be. Based on the verse, you shall go in his ways, Deuteronomy 28:9. The Midrash explains, just as he is called compassionate, you should be compassionate. And the Holy One is called gracious, you should be gracious. Additionally, we are taught that the Holy One is not a tyrant over his creatures. He does not deal arrogantly or despotically within the world he created? If so, how can he be personified by the sages in answering Moses the way he does? There is, however, a case where even a loving parent who is normally very patient and sensitive to every question a child asks will respond in abrupt and an angry tone. And that is if they are in immediate danger. You talk to your kid, oh, sugar, honey pie, you do this. But the moment they're fixing to stick their finger in the light socket, your tone changes. Out of love. If the child's about to be hurt or worse, the authoritative response should yell out a commanding voice, stop. If in our case there was an emergency, we could understand the Holy One commanding Moses as well as the ministering angels to be silent immediately. But what is the emergency? Could Moses' question possibly cause incalculable damage? Could Moses' question possibly prevent God's omnipotent will and purpose of creation from being fulfilled? What is occurring within the martyrdom of Rabbi Akiva in the 10 martyrs that Moses or even the ministering angels could be interfering with? What could it possibly be? What is Moses proclaiming with his thoughts and with his words that the divine mind abruptly needs to bring to an immediate and absolute halt? We will begin unraveling some of the code words and purposely formulating expressions used in this confounding Agadah. Remember, Talmudic sages were master cryptographers. They could conceal and reveal, and what they were teaching and what they were writing and what they were saying. Publicly passing information with hidden message to their colleagues and disciples in a manner in which the uninitiated could not decipher the encrypted message. Moreover, members of this rabbinic brotherhood were masters of science, stenography, embedding secret messages within more encompassing message in such a way that no one is even aware that the hidden message is being transmitted. In other words, the ancient technique of Agadic stenography conceals a deeper layer of data within the layer of data that is worded in such strange ways and with such impossible tales, no one on the outside really can take them serious. That's why every Christian thinks the Talmud is just a bunch of crazy rabbinic stories, because they are written in code so that nobody knows unless you know the code. Where did I stop here? Yet, the collective Jewish genius of these spiritual titans still manages to reveal and teach everyday lessons of morality, ethics, fundamental principles, truth for the public in the Agadah's revealed messages. This is the Peshat. While simultaneously concealing the Agadah's deep concealed messages in the inner circles, this is called the Sod, or the secret level. So you have the Musar, how to be a good patient, a good person in the Talmud, and then you go through the Talmud like we do, and we see all the levels that are going on in there. Why are there 4 guys talking? Why are there 5 guys talking? Why are there 6 guys talking? What's going on? Why are they saying this word and why are they saying that word? Because they're transmitting the mind of Moses. According to the Peshat, is never distorted by the Sod, as the Sod wears the Peshat like a hand in a glove, a soul and a body. Even without being initiated into this rabbinic code, the revealed narrative speaks for itself and has its own internal message to relate. Once, however, the cipher is encrypted in the passages supplied, the entire Peshat narrative confronting God is turned upon his head. Spectacularly, the ultimate Kashah question of Moses, King David, and the ministering angels. This is your Torah, and this is its reward, is revealing to be an esoteric rabbinic ambigram. A single word or phrase that can be read with 2 distinct and even opposite intentions. The sages could have phrased the question in any number of ways in such that the manner that could only have been intended as a question. Rather, depending upon the inflection used, the formula is grammatically intended to be read both as a question and as a statement. That's one of the things we've learned in this class. So this is your Torah and this is your reward. This is your Torah and this is your reward. See the difference? God's getting his light back. And they are echad. They are becoming one with the Holy One. It's a big difference. From Ayin to Aleph. Big difference. This is Torah, and this is its reward. Inverting it on itself simultaneously contains the very answer to its own question. The concealing intentions of the Talmudic sages is that Moses is also stating the fact that he does know the answer to his own question. This is Torah and this is its reward. Becoming the very fuel that supplies the mind of God. Additionally, the divine response is also turned on its head. Counterintuitively, the Creator bluntly answers Stoke is not ordering Moses to desist in his attempt to penetrate the impenetrable and to know the unknowable, but rather Stoke, thus has it ascended in the thought, my thought before me is rabbinic double entendre. Among other things, it's actually beckoning Moses to enter beyond into the divine mind, but in a unique higher state of dimension of stillness and quietness. He's bringing Moses in, speaking and asking, that's 3D. Thought and consciousness is 4D. Quit talking, come up here. Once again, the stenographic masters in Talmud, the Midrash, and Zohar specifically choose this word as it is used in well-known Mishnahs and the Pirkei Avot, where it states, a fence to wisdom is silence. The term silence used there is the same root word as shtok is used here. The term chokmah, or wisdom, used there also refers to dominion of thought. The divine thought, in the case here, in short, by quietening and silencing one's analytical binary left brain, Bina, processing, one gains access to the direct knowing and unifying of the right brain of its processing. There is an answer to the question, and the question is the answer. But it lies in a realm where it is not possible for language or analytical thought to coexist. Accordingly, the intention of the Creator's command, Stoke, is not to silence Moses and the sages and their students desiring to be initiated into this great mystery. Rather, the intention is to direct us on how to penetrate further into the mind of God. Quit complaining. In order to do so, one must silence the lower dimension of linear thought in order to enter to the higher dimensional thought. Think about maybe what God's thinking about. It's not what you're looking at, it's where you're looking from. It's axiomatic, one of our tools. The divine thought. One of the great Hasidic masters wrote, quiet. God did not directly answer Moses' strong objection because of the secret of the matter cannot be revealed in the dimension of the reality he was in. I can't tell you you're in Olam Hazeh. Come up here in Olam Haba and we'll talk about it. This is not for 3D. This is Man coming up to 4D. And when he got up there, he's going, I guarantee you, he's going, all right, look, here's the deal. This is all the energy that I created in the beginning of time that prolapsed out, and prolapsed Guvarot is pain and suffering, which the Israel is Adam, and Adam has to go through this because that's the way I created it, and that's the very light that's going to snap back and go all the way through the other side and create the new heavens and the new earth. It's a nuclear fission bomb. The atoms have to break and split. Now, I'm just guessing, but I got a pretty good throttle on the pulse. It is not possible to grasp the answer through speech, but rather only through thought. This is accessible only by attaching oneself to the dimension of thought. Then Moses was able to grasp it. Moses, in effect, was being told that if he wants to know the answer to the question, he must turn off 3D, his human dualistic thinking, in order to turn on 4D, his singular intuition, echad, is in the secret of what Rabbi Akiva was telling us. Crown in the letters. All the pieces are in the Agadata. You just have to put the puzzle together. In unimaginable states of excruciating agony and ecstasy, the souls of Rabbi Akiva and the 10 martyrs are ascending through the corridor of cosmic bonfire heavenward into the higher consciousness. Moses and all who merit to follow in his footsteps are being secretly instructed to catch a ride, as it were, in the very waves of sacred stimulation that is ascending in the thought of God. It is precisely there within this secret and ascension of God's thought where Moses and those of us who desire to be among his disciples are being initiated into the very mystery of the 10 martyrs and the kingdom. Because the Ma'im Dukrim is the beginning and the Man is the end. Mod to Man. When the Man comes up, then the Mod. That's why the angels said the same thing, as we've learned through Ezekiel. It's got to go up. So this is the secret of the light of the stimulation from below. And Moses knew it, and Akiva knew it, and they all knew it, and now we know it. So those are the biggest, that's the biggest Kasha question in the oral Torah. And last week we did the biggest Kasha question in the written Torah. How much time we got left? Do we even have time to get it? Oh, okay. Hey, I tell you what, let's stop right there. I'll give you a little hint about what's coming, okay, in chapter 6. When Israel gets into the, Israel has been given all of the vessels, all the kalim, we had the shattering of the vessels, right? And they've been given the vessels to contain the light, to contain the mod. They are to hold them, then it creates the man, and they do their mitzvahs, and it goes back up. When they stop doing the mitzvahs and start doing idolatry, it's going to shatter. All right? But there's still these, what are these vessels? These are the very vessels that build the new heaven and the new earth. And so what we will see next week in Ezekiel is how God uses the nations to penetrate Israel to cause them to lose all that, and it expands. Guvarot, fractals out, so that when they put it back together, it creates more man because it's heavy. It's all the din and all the suffering, because all the suffering that they're going through is only brought on by the nations. They don't know anything about idolatry until the nations bring it in, and this is what gives it the fuel to create the new heavens and new earth. And so next week, we're going to go through chapter 6 in Ravali, and we're going to learn how all of it works in Ezekiel. And the Torah is amazing, and the sages are amazing, and I'll see y'all next week.